Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Sean, for the intro. Mine is gonna be a quick one. We, I'm going to take you through two things. One, uh, policies that have been implemented recently that might be of interest to the community, and right after that, we'll look at what could be of interest to us that the other regions are discussing. So we have gone ahead and looked at what the other regions are talking about that we think might interest us. We did not pick out everything. We only picked out what we think might be of interest in the context of our region. So when we get to that, I will talk about what is being discussed everywhere else apart from RIPE. Marco will be able to come to the microphone and give us more insight on that when we get to that. So there are two policies that have been implemented recently that we thought we would share with members of the community. The first one, Anycast assignments in the Afrinic service region. This one actually was discussed more than 1 year ago, the first version of it. That first version was brought about because at the time, anybody that wanted space for use for anycasting their services, there was no policy at Afrinic that actually was providing guidance to Afrinic staff to be able to issue anycast space. So this policy was proposed and it was implemented initially, but the first version of it was only covering IPv4 space. The other types of resources, IPv6 and S numbers, were not part of it. So one of the community members came up and offered a revision of the same proposal to take care of IPv6 Anycast resources for those that need them, as well as AS numbers for those that need them for Anycast. So the way the proposal was written is such that if you need Anycast space, you can only get 1/24, and that's it. So if you need more, the policy does not cater for you, and you might want to perhaps think of reviewing it if you think it does not meet your needs. That applies also to IPv6 space. If you need Anycast space for IPv6, IPv6 space for anycasting your services, you still can only get 1/48. You can also as well get just one S number. I believe these are all in line with the recommendations in BCP 126, which is also, I think, an RFC whose number I just can't recall offhand. I think it's 4876 or something like that. And I think that same RFC has roughly the same recommendations, especially regarding IPv4 and conservation of the IPv4 resource. So that was that's the first proposal that we thought we'd share with you. So any members of the community that now want to acquire IPv4 space or V6 space or an S number for anycasting their services, there is now a policy that takes care of that. And if you have submitted a request before and it was not considered, please, you can consider resubmitting it again, and you'll be able to get just 1/24. Please don't come for a /16 for Anycast. You won't get it. The policy doesn't take care of that. The second one, no RDNS unless assigned. This one was actually implemented before the last meeting. It's just that we thought we would also share it with you because many members are still affected by this, and there are still many support tickets that do come to Afrinic regarding this issue. People, of course, that are noticing that their reverse DNS service does not seem to be working, and they are wondering why, or maybe they missed the communication. Why? And the reason for that is because ever since this proposal, this policy was implemented, the no RDNS unless assigned policy, it touches local internet registries. And those that have taken IPv4 allocations and have not gone to the WHOIS database to register any IP space that they have issued to their customers, to their clients, or to their downstream networks, or to their own network infrastructure, do not have access to reverse DNS services. So if you do notice that perhaps your reverse DNS service is not working, or you cannot actually activate it in my Afrinic or in the WHOIS database, you might want to check whether you are affected by this policy proposal. Go into the WHOIS database or go into my Afrinic and see whether you have actually gone ahead to create or register any IP addresses that you have issued to your customers, to your clients, to your downstream networks, to your own infrastructure in the WHOIS database. Because if you haven't, then you will be denied reverse DNS services, and chances are that this is because of this proposal, implementation of this proposal in particular. So, Andrew, do you mind if the questions can come right after? Sorry, Chair, I think you should be the one to determine that. Oh, okay, thank you. So, these are the two main policies of interest that we thought we should share with you at this particular moment. There are others that have been implemented before, but these ones are still there are still issues associated with these proposals that we thought we should share with the community, especially regarding the reverse DNS services and the Anycast resources. Next, I will briefly share with you what is being discussed in the other regions. Just a minute. Sean, would you like the questions to be taken just on this particular one right now, or after? Okay, sure. Andrew, please carry on.
First of all, it's Andrew Alston here from Liquid Telecom. I just want a clarification as to whether or not that RDNS policy is also being applied with regards to the legacy space, because Afrinic does handle the RDNS for legacy space, but beyond that, and that is purely as a result of legacy. However, Afrinic has no right to put such determinations on legacy space since they are not bound by the RSA. So can we please get clarification there?
Okay, I will try to answer that question from the knowledge I have, but Madhvi, if you feel you need to clarify, please go ahead and do that. Or if you want to answer it directly, please carry on. Okay, sure.
Okay, from what was implemented, the policy applies to LIR members because it's no reverse unless assigned. Most of our legacy resource holders in our region do not have allocated PA space, so I'm not sure if it's being applicable. There could be one, but I don't know. The cases that we have come across, they are assigned PIs, so it may not affect them. But if there is a case that we catch and the community feels that it should not be applied to legacy resource holders, then we will have to intervene on our side.
Okay. Just a minute before Andrew. So that is Madhvi from Afrinic. So please try to mention your name and your affiliation, and before you make a comment. Go ahead, Andrew.
It's Andrew here from Liquid again. I would like to ask with the indulgence of the chair, that this be verified and brought back to this community before the end of this meeting, as it is an incredibly important point, considering that the vast amount of academic space that sits particularly in the SADC region relies on its reverse DNS. We have already had a massive reverse DNS failure once this year due to a flaw, and I don't want to see them being disenfranchised, so I would like an answer to this before the end of the meeting.
Okay, Andrew. Andrew, we shall take a look at that, and we do take your understand your concerns regarding legacy space holders. As Madhvi said, many of them tend to be assigned PIs, not LIR allocations, and the policy does not touch any other space other than LIR allocations. But we'll look into it and perhaps get back to you at the end of the day with any statistics that could help clarify that.
Yeah, Owen. Oh, okay.
Madhvi, Registration Service Manager, Afrinic. Just to add one clarification, as from the date of implementation of this policy, we have not had any end user member or legacy resource holder who had an issue registering the reverse DNS on the WHOIS database. We have had no request of any difficulties, otherwise we would have already taken that into account. Thank you.
Owen DeLong, Aaron Advisory Council. I think Andrew's point may be moot, and even if it's not moot, it may be errant anyway. I don't know what conclusion, if any, this region has come to regarding RIR, Authority over Legacy Resources, but in the Aaron region, the determination has been that as the successor registry to the previous registries, the policies do actually apply to legacy resources, whether or not they've signed an RSA.
Thank you, Owen, for that. Has that always been the case, or was that determined recently? Because I've followed a few discussions on the PPML list, and they tend to imply that legacy resource holders are not touched by the RSA, apart from the special legacy RSA that they have signed.
There are many people, well, they are not touched by the RSA, but they are touched by the Aaron policy document, the public policy number resource policy manual. They are subject to the number resource policy manual, and any operations on them in the registry must be in compliance with those policies. There are lots of people who make claims otherwise on the mailing list and elsewhere, but the consistent position of Aaron staff, the Aaron board, and Aaron's corporate counsel has been that as the successor registry, they do have the authority to implement the policies, and the policies do cover legacy resources as well. And those have so far been upheld in the court cases.
Andrew again here from Liquid. I'd like to comment on this further because this issue has come up a number of times within this community over the past 5 or 6 years. And there has been no policy within this PDP to make legacy space subject to Afrinic rules. And in fact, it has been argued many times before this community, and there is precedent that legacy space is not subject to this. I point to allocations that have been made to legacy holders where it has been determined that legacy space cannot be counted towards an evaluation of used space by the entity. University of Free State, point in case. University of the Northwest, point in case. University of Cape Town, point in case. So there is precedent to say that legacy space is outside of the auspices of Afrinic control.
Okay, I think that we might have to escalate this issue to our legal folks and perhaps see if we can get a report from this and get their opinion on it, because regarding the process, Andrew is right. Andrew is right regarding the fact that legacy spaces are not considered when evaluating utilization of V4 space for subsequent allocations. But I think that's besides the point of whether actual policies and any future policies will actually touch or affect legacy resource holders and other legacy resources in the WHOIS database. I believe this is something that needs maybe further study, and perhaps maybe at a point in time we can involve our legal advisors and see if we can take it a step ahead. I believe this is not the time to give a conclusive answer on that, especially given that the other regions have looked at it and have a different view on it. Maybe it's something we might need to take a look at again.
Thank you, Ernest. Thank you to everyone as well. I think you move to the next item. If there are no more comments, any further comments on what has just been discussed? Okay. Let's move on, please.
Thank you, Sean. Okay, we went ahead and looked at the what other regions are talking about, and I'll quickly summarize a few of the policies that we thought we would share with the community here, in case the community thinks that some of these maybe might touch our region and perhaps might be of interest to us. A quick look at what we picked from the Aryan region. The Aryan region, they have a discussion about how Aryan handles reorganizations, I believe, from the context of internal resource transfers regarding mergers and acquisitions, and if one company acquires the other, or if a department of one company acquires another, or wants to transfer its resources to another. This is something that is being discussed, and I believe that such an issue has come up before on our mailing list regarding how Afrinic handles internal transfers of IP blocks from one member organization to another organization, whether they are a member or not. And it is interesting that it has come up before, and this is something we thought we'd share. Then the second one that we thought was interesting is the need to change utilization requirements for subsequent allocations from considering the last used allocation to the total aggregate of all the allocations that a member holds. I believe this is how this is what it is. So the way Aryan handles utilization or assessment of utilization when giving out additional space to members is they were, I believe, looking at or evaluating utilization of the most recent allocation. And this proposal seeks to adjust that so that they look at the utilization of all allocations held by the member. I see Owen is trying to clarify that, and Owen, please feel free.
Yeah, you're right about the intent of the proposal. I just wanted to clarify, it's no longer a proposal, it's policy.
Oh.
It was adopted.
It was actually adopted. Thank you for that, Owen. So that actually was adopted. When was it? Was it recently? Okay. Okay, so that was actually adopted recently by the Aryan community. So in our region, Madhvi again will have to correct me on this. When looking at utilization of the most recent space, I believe we look at the aggregate, Madhvi, or do we look at the aggregate, or do we look at the last used allocation? Because this is perhaps might have some bearing on some of our processes.
Okay. The interpretation of the policy at the moment is the org should have reached 80% utilization of aggregated space. But when our members, they range from the very small ones up to the large resource requests. So during the evaluation of additional resource requests, what we do is we audit the latest allocation. But as the number of prefixes grow for the organization and IPs are spread all over their services, then we go for auditing aggregated space. But if we audited the previous time, it was 80%, we assume it has been audited, so the 80% rule still applies. Am I clear?
Yeah, so okay. You're clear. So it's a most recent allocation, last used allocation, not aggregate.
It's 80% aggregated space, but when we do it, when in practice, okay, we still refer, if they had 80% aggregated space in the last allocation, we audit that. And the previous ones were already audited.
So it is.
So we audit the first one, 80%, they get another resource, they get another prefix. They come back for more, we'll audit the last allocation, because that hasn't been audited, it was recently given to them.
Okay, so
but as the tick request grows, we do the full audit of all the prefixes. But the 80% rule is aggregatable. It's just how we put it in practice.
Okay, thanks, ma'am. LACNIC, we picked just one from there. LACNIC are still, there's an inter-RIR transfer proposal that's being discussed in LACNIC, and I believe it is still under discussion. So this proposal allows organizations outside of the LACNIC region to transfer space into LACNIC from another registry, so that for the purposes of building more networks in LACNIC, etc. The way I looked at this proposal, I did not see, unless I missed something, it seems it allows only transfer of space into the LACNIC region, not out of the LACNIC region. And I believe if there's a LACNIC representative here, they could correct us. This we picked up because an inter-RIR transfer proposal has come up before in our region, although it was rejected. But yeah, it has actually, two of them have come up before. And this is again of interest for those who think that this might be necessary in our region. Andrew, you have a question?
Yeah, I've just been looking. Okay, so the right policy specifically states that if I want to buy space from a right member, I've got to be a right member and I can't use it in the region. I asked Owen just now what the Owen thing said about space going out of the region. He said it's not in the policy, but it's a staff interpretation. If you can clarify that, Owen. LACNIC's obviously said they can transfer space into the region. My question is, in the event of an inter-RIR transfer policy being made available that does allow for Afrinic members to transfer space in, what is the current state of readiness to accept space and transfers like that? Have we done any planning whatsoever in our back-end systems to actually allow for transfers in and out of the region?
I'll try to answer that. The last question in particular, and the answer is yes, because knowing that you pretty much know the history of Afrinic, and in our setup we've actually had transfers of space from other regions, including all the technical aspects that come with it, from reverse DNS to sanity of checks in the WHOIS database, etc. So on the technical side, yes, I believe that we are 100% ready for that. It's the policy side that would be the issue. Owen, please.
Owen DeLong, Aaron Advisory Council. Without getting into the murky and muddy details of staff interpretation of policy, I would let the Aaron staff represent themselves if they were here to do so. I will say that this proposal did not achieve consensus in LACNIC and was returned to the mailing list. So it's still being discussed in LACNIC, and there is substantial resistance to the non-reciprocal nature of the proposal.
Thanks, Owen. And yeah, the same proposal was, well, not the same, but a similar proposal came in our community, I think about 2 years back, and I think it was mainly rejected, other than Andrew, who supported it. Not just kidding.
Yeah, you have a comment on this?
It's a question.
Okay, please state your name and your affiliation.
Okay, my name is Michael Graaf, and I'm an Afrinic fellow. And this is a question about policy in general. It should have come at the earlier session, but I was distracted. But please indulge me. The question is simply whether, when the co-chairs recommend to the board to ratify a policy, does the board have the power to decline to ratify it, or are they just a rubber stamp they have to ratify it? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. I'll take that. From the side of, although I see the board chair is coming up, but from the side of the policy of the co-chair, we understand that board has that option. Thank you.
The board looks at the process used in arriving at that policy and not the content in approving. We approve that the process was followed, everything is fine and done according to the rules.
Yeah, Sunday. Sorry, the question was whether you have the option to reject or not. And I hope my response was in sync with yours. That's just what I want to confirm.
Could you repeat your response?
That you have the option to reject the approval, I mean to disapprove the recommendation of the PDP co-chair or not.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I think we can continue.
We picked two proposals from the Afrinic region, and the first one was the modification to the criteria for getting AS numbers from Afrinic. And I believe this discussion has also popped up a couple of times on our mailing list, and this is why we thought we should share this. So this proposal at Afrinic modifies the eligibility criteria for getting AS numbers such that the need to be multi-homed is removed, it's wiped out. So currently this is the requirement to get an AS number from Afrinic. I believe it is the same requirement to get an AS number from Afrinic, and the Afrinic region is considering removing this requirement. The only requirement that is going to remain is that whoever is requesting the AS number is planning to use it within 6 months. That's our interpretation, and if anybody from Afrinic thinks we misinterpreted it, please feel free to correct us. This has come up before, and this is why we're sharing it. The second interesting proposal at Afrinic also is a modification of the eligibility criteria for IPv4 space. And the proposal would extend the criteria for end site IPv4 requirements. These are the equivalent of end users in our region, so that an organization can be eligible to get IPv4 space if it is currently multi-homed or interconnected with an upstream provider address space, or plans to advertise the requested space within 3 months. So we did not read through the rest of the proposal to find out the motivation for this, but I believe one of the reasons that the Afrinic region perhaps could be considering proposals like this is because large allocations in the Afrinic region are no longer possible anyway, since they are already in the last phase of their of consuming their last /8, which last phase only allows issuance of small blocks in the first place. So I believe they are trying to make it not that difficult or to make it easy for anybody to get a small block from Apinic, if only they show that they will be multi-homed, or if they plan to use it within a reasonably short time after getting it. The requirement to just be multi-homed has also come up in our region. And again, this is the intent of sharing these two proposals because they are similar to what has been discussed before. And I believe that our folks that receive requests from members have seen arguments like this, companies saying, hey, we just want to be multi-homed, but we do not meet the rest of the requirements, and we think we deserve to get IPv4 space. And if you think that is the case that applies to you, it's being discussed elsewhere, maybe go through the current mechanisms to propose something similar. So at this point, I would like to call Marco to the policy personnel at RIPE NCC to share with us what RIPE NCC is discussing. You're here, there's no need for me to talk about it. Ashil?
Yeah. Good morning. Bonjour.